following it. So don't hesitate to ask questions through that channel if you wish. But if some questions come to your mind later, don't hesitate to use our ministry address, Brexit at mpo.cz. We will answer your questions in collaboration with our UK colleagues any moment they come. It's the email address which we have established 2 years ago, so I hope that some of you at least know it already. So that's the housekeeping. We have practically 2 hours, so this is the time we have, and maybe some speakers will also execute some self-constraint to stick within the time. But I will not prevent nobody from speaking, because I think that information you have to share with us are interesting and important. Now, that's the housekeeping. Thank you for your attention. Now we officially start. And to that purpose, first of all, let me pay the warmest welcome to His Excellency Ambassador Archer of the UK, distinguished representatives of Border and Protocol Delivery Group and other UK's institutions, as well as the Czech participants, namely colleagues from the Ministry of Finance, General Directorate of Customs, Confederation of Industry and Transport, and of course, to those for whom we organized today's seminar, our businesses, namely exporting and importing company. I have to apologize, Mrs. Martina Tauberová, Deputy Minister of Ministry of Industry and Trade for European Matters and Foreign Trade, who was at the last moment was called off to the Minister's office and cannot join us today. So I will try to say a few short words on her behalf. I used to work many years in Geneva in WTO, and there is a saying in WTO, 2 biggest lies in WTO are, Mr. Chairman, I'm not an expert in the matter, and I'll be short. I don't know how expert am I in those matters, but I will definitely try to be short. I don't know if I will manage, so bear with me, because there are many things we can say on the post-Brexit period. I tried to push the name Brexit practical question 6 months after. I didn't manage. The name is different, but this is precisely why we are here. Because despite the fact that this new situation has been coming for practically 2 years, and we could prepare to it, our meeting with businesses in the first quarter of this year showed that not all questions have been answered, and not all situations has been prepared or imagined. So our exporters and importers sometimes face new situations, and they got into troubles because they were not ready to them, and so was the UK administration sometimes. So this is why we came together with Mr. Ambassador to idea to organize a practical seminar which will cover those questions connected mostly to customs procedures and border controls, so that our businesses can ask questions or have information at the moment when those procedures are practically settled. So this is quite an opportune moment. I have here a few figures I'm supposed to mention, so let me do so. According to Czech Statistical Office, our mutual trade has been changing since 2017. 2017 was a record year in turnover, reaching 11.8 billion euros. UK is our top 5 partner in export and top 10 partner in turnover. So it's very important trade relations. The Czech export has been stagnating since then, oscillating around 8 billion euros. Unfortunately, the last year we registered a sharp decrease by 17%, most probably because of the COVID outbreak. More interestingly, imports from the UK in the same period has been constantly falling to the last year's level of some 66% of the year 2017. That's a lot, even taking into account the pandemics. The growth index last year was -7%, which is not as significant as in the previous years. So the pandemic has not had that negative effect on UK imports to the Czech Republic, unlike Czech Republic's exports to the UK. So there is something wrong in our trade, and we need to identify why and what can we do with that, about that. So in the current year, the Czech Republic has delivered goods to the UK in volume of more than 2.5 billion euros within the first 4 months. And the United Kingdom has imported goods to the Czech Republic in the value of 831 million euros for the same period. Should the tendency continue whole year like that, it would bring some growth to our exports, but no change in the imports from the UK. So let's see how that will develop. So this is something which worries us, and we are ready to cooperate with our UK colleagues on improvements in any method, in any way we can imagine. And I think that brings me also to the end of my speech. So I will just repeat this email address, brexit@mpo.cz, for future questions and future contacts. And last but not least, let me appreciate the cooperation with British Embassy in Prague, British Border and Protocol Delivery Group, General Directorate of Customs of the Czech Republic, and Confederation of Industry of the Czech Republic. So thank you very much. And with that, let me give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Archer. The floor is yours.
Martin, thank you very much indeed. I think we'll deliver on those two promises, because nobody would expect the ambassador to be the expert, and you've said a lot of what I might have said. So very briefly, obviously Brexit's a fact. This seminar is well timed because we're looking back at the first 6 months of real life post-Brexit, after Brexit. And it'll be fascinating to hear from businesses how it's going. The second thing is that Brexit was never intended to stop Czech and British companies trading or to reduce consumer choice. That's why we have a free trade agreement called the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. And that's why, at a much more modest level, we're doing this. Free trade, of course, is two things. I mean, one, it's about governments agreeing to make trade as easy as possible. The other, of course, is it's about companies deciding whether they want to export to a particular market or not. And I think it's very important to say that we recognise that you don't have to. You might give up on the United Kingdom. You might find it easier to sell elsewhere. So for us, that's to say the entire British side this morning, this is about ensuring that bureaucracy doesn't stand in your way, at least more than the very minimum, by explaining the rules and by helping you understand how to continue or to begin to trade with the UK with no great difficulty in the context of this free trade agreement. Now, in some ways, of course, this event resembles, gosh, quite a number that we've run before over the last couple of years. And indeed, one of the pieces of paper in my folder, which is clearly a re-edit, describes it as a preparedness seminar. Preparedness, of course, was what we were doing until, well, 6 months ago. Now it's happening, but from our side, we have brought to you once again many of the same experts who will be able to speak in a very detailed way about all the different elements that your company may need to grapple with in order to export painlessly. And I wanted to say yet again, I'm really grateful to my colleagues sitting in the United Kingdom for coming today to play their part in helping ensure that Czech businesses are at least not put off by the bureaucracy. I also want to echo Martin. Ministerstvo, průmyslu a obchodu have been fantastic partners throughout this process, sharing that understanding that our job is as governments is to enable and to promote trade links. And I'm delighted that once again Svaz průmyslu are involved, because they are obviously our critical private sector partner. Now, Martin's challenge, there's something wrong with our trade at the moment. There's stagnation or declining numbers, is a really good one. And as I've said, I should be very interested to hear what you as exporters think is going on and what more we can do to get out of the way. COVID really has obscured what's happening at the moment. I don't think it's an excuse. We've seen dramatic changes in trade practices as a consequence of COVID all over the world, and it was natural that we would expect them here. But we need, again, information and help to disentangle the two sets of consequences. So this seminar will, I hope, be valuable for businesses and very informative for the government representatives, and it should therefore get going, and I should therefore stop. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much, Nick. It was, yes, I can agree with all what you said, and thank you for your kind words on our address. We try to be helpful, and so are you. So the cooperation is really mutual, and we try to help to both of us, to both of our importers and exporters. So without any further ado, let us move to the presentations. I have a list of speakers and topics, but I don't know if I should read them one by one. So I will maybe ask Margaret Whitby from Border and Protocol Delivery Group to start, and then to pass the floor over to other colleagues so that we can continue. Otherwise, I will do it by myself, but we are in your hands. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you, Ambassador. We are delighted to be with you this morning, and it's only a shame that we can't be there in Prague or in the Czech Republic. My colleague Ailey is getting some slides ready, and the first thing we want to do is just alert you to the fact that, of course, as the speakers have said, we're 6 months in now, coming up to the end of June. And we'd just like to have a quick look back at the experience that many UK exporters have hit as they send their goods to the EU, and learn from that. And following on from the theme that Martin raised, I am not the expert in all matters. I work in the Border and Protocol Delivery Group. We have the privilege of sitting in the Cabinet Office in government, but I am joined today by a number of experts from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, from the Department of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and from the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And they in turn are joined by colleagues in all sorts of areas. So please do ask any questions that you have throughout the event. We hope that our presentations will cover and perhaps preempt a number of the questions that you have, cover the detailed procedures that you need to know about, but don't be shy. Do ask those questions. And as Martin said, we have email addresses available to cover questions that will occur to you after the event. But the first thing I'd like you all to do, if you can face it, please, is to look at Slido, to log into Slido and just answer a couple of questions for us. We would like to understand readiness in the Czech Republic, how your businesses are ready in the coming weeks. I think it's fairly straightforward to log into Slido. My colleague Natasha has put some detail in the chat. But if you log into that, and if once you've done that, we have the first question for you, which is about whether you've moved goods between the GB and EU in the last 6 months. Thank you, Ailey. If we could move on to the next slide, please. So if you have moved goods between the EU and GB since the 1st of January, yes, or that you have no plans to move goods at this stage. But if you don't, we hope that today will help you. This question will remain up for a little while. Thank you. If we can move on to the next slide. As you will be aware, the UK government has delayed some of the import controls in the light of COVID and in the need to give businesses more time to prepare. So what we have done, of course, in the last 6 months, companies have been exporting from GB to the EU, and full controls have come in for exports from the EU and for imports from the EU. So we've got a good understanding of the sorts of problems that businesses have faced. I've just done a very quick list of those here. They may be familiar to you, or perhaps you have overcome these and these are not at all a problem for you. But one of the key things that we're learning and things that businesses sending goods to GB will need to be prepared for is completing declarations and certificates for sanitary and phytosanitary goods correctly, making sure that the detail that is required is there. That detail must be there and it must be correct to ensure that goods continue to flow through the borders. So it is worth understanding what is required on the declarations and different certificates and the format of those. Our colleagues will talk you through that today. Another issue that we've seen quite a bit of is the completion of transit movement. So if you're moving goods between GB and the EU on transit, we have come across a number of cases where transit movements have not been properly closed. They need to be closed and the guarantee needs to be released. So always remember to go to the office of destination and close the transit movement, or indeed, if you're an approved consignee, please ensure that the transit movement is closed and that they consider the order and where that needs to be done. Have that worked out before the transit movement starts and ensure it is done. We're aware of the impact on businesses moving loads through groupage. Of course, if you have a large number of consignments in a particular truck, each of those consignments will need to meet all the requirements at EU and UK borders. And if paperwork is missing for one, that will hold up everything in a particular truck. So groupage can cause, if it's not done properly, can cause delays. So we are working with our colleagues in the Department of Environment and Food and Rural Affairs. They are looking at ways of looking at seals and so on. They can talk about how they're looking at options there to help ensure that groupage moves smoothly and is still available for those smaller businesses in particular. Rules of origin is a question, questions that come up again and again. And again, understanding the rules and the principles of those. We're not going to dwell too much on it today, but we can point you in the right direction for guidance on rules of origin in the UK. And some of the pitfalls that we've seen over the last couple of months have been addressed in that guidance. So I hope it's clear to you. The other issue that comes up periodically is the capacity of intermediaries, particularly those trying to find intermediaries in the UK. The government has put a lot of funding into supporting the intermediary and customs agent market, and HMRC has published a register of availability. That is, intermediaries that are available and taking on work can be found at a register published by HMRC. So if you are having trouble finding an intermediary in the UK, I hope this register will help you. And I know my colleagues in HMRC can share a link to that detail. Much of today is going to be covering the information that you will need for getting your exports from the Czech Republic into GB through various routes. There are some changes that are coming in a phased approach, and I'll just give you a summary of that before my colleagues talk you through the detail. But for now, we have a second question for those of you who've logged into Slido. We'd like to understand how aware you are of the procedures that are coming in, particularly in the UK from October and January. So if you could look at this question too, please, and choose A, B, or C. as I said, we're going to talk you through the detail of this. We want to ensure that there's a wide awareness and readiness across the whole supply chain. You will all represent different sections of that supply chain here today, but please do feel free to share this information with those that you deal with in the whole supply chain. No matter what part people play, understanding the procedures and when they're coming in will be helpful. This summary outlines the UK's staged approach to import controls. As you know, from the 1st of January 2021, that was the start of customs formalities in the UK and, of course, full formalities in the EU from the 1st of January 2021 that you'll all be getting familiar with. From the 1st of October 2021, so in approximately 6 months' time, products of animal origin coming into GB will be subject to sanitary controls. So you will need to start to think about those certificates and detail that you need to bring products of animal origin into GB. And for those of you that might have been using the exit summary waiver to get goods and loads out of the GB, that waiver will end on the 1st of October. So one to flag there in your diaries and be aware of. The next stage, when something changes, is on the 1st of January 2022, where full customs declarations will be required before goods arrive at a GB port. My colleagues in HMRC will talk to you about the phased approach that we've taken to customs declarations, but there is a facility for importers to phase their submission of customs declarations in GB at the moment. That will end on the 1st of January 2022. So if people want to use simplified procedures after that date in customs declarations, they will need to be registered to do so, and they will need to have applied to HMRC and have that approval, or indeed have a customs intermediary who can do it for them. From the 1st of January, the entry summary declarations will be required for coming into GB. So that waiver too will end on the 1st of January. And border control posts will come online for high priority or high risk plants, and border control posts will come online at particular ports. So you'll need to think about making sure that you're coming into GB through the right port with a border control posts that can handle the goods that you're bringing. Of course, that also applies to products of animal origin, POAO, and certain animal byproducts. So a lot of changes, big changes on the 1st of January 2022. And then on the 1st of March 2022, border control posts will go online for live animals and all regulated plant products. So you would have to pre-notify with your certificates and ensure that goods are brought through the right port with the right border control post. I mentioned that at the moment there is a waiver that allows delayed customs declarations for importers to GB, and by July 2022 anybody using that waiver will need to have submitted their final customs declaration. So another date to watch if you are acting as an importer in GB and using that delayed declarations procedure. That's a very quick summary from me, but my colleagues are going to talk you through that in detail. And I'm now delighted to hand over to one of our many experts from this morning, Claire Wilson from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. Good morning, Claire. Thank you.
Good morning, Margaret. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm here to talk you through the customs controls from HMRC. Eilidh, could you move on the slides, please? And so Margaret mentioned this at the start there. You will need to be established in the UK to meet a number of customs requirements. For a trader who is not UK established, this means you will need to use a UK established agent. That's for both imports and exports. And you also need to be able to have UK establishment to apply for a wide range of different customs authorisations and simplifications. So that's particularly things like special procedures, so that's inward processing, outward processing and customs warehousing, AEO authorisation and making simplified declarations. And my BPDG Cabinet Office colleagues have provided a link at the bottom of this slide. And in the chat, I'm on form this morning, Margaret. I have already put in a link to the Customs Agents page on gov.uk. If you could move on the slide again. So Margaret did cover some of this, but it is worth repeating some of those key dates because there are different dates depending on what you're doing. So from the 1st of January, it was full customs controls for all goods being exported from the UK to, from GB, sorry, to the EU. And that is for traders using both non-controlled goods and controlled goods. So regardless of what the goods are, they needed to have export declarations. Traders who are importing goods, now if they're importing controlled goods, so that's tobacco or alcohol, they would have needed to follow full customs requirements from January the 1st, 2021. But Margaret alluded to this, there is an option. If you are a trader importing non-controlled goods, there is a deferred declarations process available. It's available for the entire period of 2021. So that's from the 1st of January 2021 to the 31st of December 2021. And what this means, and we'll come on in a little bit more detail, but it means it allows traders to take 175 days to complete their full supplementary declaration. So it just gives traders that little bit more time to get those things in place. And both UK and non-UK traders can access that delayed declarations process. Entry summary declarations, they won't be needed until the 1st of January 2022. That's for imports. And the UK has also acceded to the Common Transit Convention in its own right from the 1st of January. So all transit procedures must be applied now if you're moving goods under transit from GB to EU or vice versa. And again, we've got more information as we walk through the slides. But if we could have the next slide, please, Eileen. Thank you. So just a little bit more detail on that. If you're importing goods through from EU to GB, the goods must be pre-lodged if they're coming through a roll-on, roll-off port or using the Common Transit Convention process. And businesses can have that option. There's a note here that it can be found in the border operating model at 1.1.3, but it also has its own page on gov.uk about those deferred declarations and how you can move them. If we move the slide on again, please. So let's talk a little bit more about what that deferred declarations process is. And you might hear this referred to as staged customs controls, deferred declarations, or delayed declarations. So this can be used by both UK and non-UK traders. You will need a GB EORI to start recording those movements in advance. And a GB EORI can be got very easily from gov.uk. There is an online portal to get that. It only applies to non-controlled goods, and you will need to make a declaration in your own records. This is called an entry into declarant's records. And then up to 175 days from the date of import, you will need to submit a supplementary declaration. At that point of the supplementary declaration, traders must have the relevant authorisations in place or use a UK customs agent. And if you're not UK registered or established, you will need to use a UK established customs agent. That will be removed. So that's in place all year this year, but it will be removed. And in January, full customs controls will apply. If you could move the slide on again, thank you. And so, yeah, that just repeats what I've said. So it is full customs controls from the 1st of January 2022. Now, that means that you will need to be authorised to use any of the procedures at the point of import. So you won't have that period where you can take some time and apply import declarations 175 days later. You will need all of the authorisations at the point of import. And if you could move the slide on again, please. So these are safety and security declarations. You will need safety and security declarations if your safety and security requirements are not included in your customs declaration. So it's less used, but is still used on some occasions. And traders who are moving goods into GB will need to make that entry summary declaration. They will need to have the registration with the Safety and Security GB service. And as it explains there, that's a digital service between customs administrators and carriers or their reps, and it's designed to incorporate lodging, handling and processing that declaration for safety and security. It will issue a movement reference number. That's a customs computer system generated number that's automatically allocated, and then that must be used by the carrier and where different by the declarant. And if we move the slide on again, I'm conscious we've got a lot of slides to get through, so I'm sure we'll come to questions on at the end as well. And for export declarations, again, we will need safety and security export declarations. So entry summary declarations, so that's EU to GB, will be required from the 1st of January. Export declarations, entry summary declarations, will be required from the 1st of January 2021. They have been required. There are some waivers. So if you are moving if you are moving empty trucks, then there is a waiver in place that will apply to the 30th of September. We'll put the link into the chat. So if goods are moving again via a non-inventory linked location, the customs declaration needs to be submitted as arrived when the goods are at the trader's premises. So this is an export from GB to EU using the chief system generally, because the chief system will be running alongside the customs declaration service. Both services are live and running. But you will usually be using chief. You need to enter the export as arrived. HMRC will then notify the trader automatically whether the goods have permission to progress to the port or whether they need to be taken for a check. And that is usually a very quick process. That usually comes back within 1 hour. For excise goods or goods moving under duty suspense only, if the goods are moving through a location that does not have systems to automatically communicate to HMRC after the goods have left the country, then it's the trader who must provide that proof after the goods have exited GB. And if you could move us on from that slide, thanks, Eileen. And we've introduced a new IT platform, and I'm sure you will have heard of this. This is the Goods Vehicle Movement Service, GVMS. This is for goods that we're moving through ports or border locations where they do not have inventory linking systems. So this supports pre-lodgement. It's currently in place for goods that are moving under transit into the UK. So that's EU to GB bound movements. But from the 1st of January 2022, GVMS will also support exports under transit, as well as regular imports and export movements. So it will come online fully from the 1st of January 2022, but it's only at the moment for goods moving under transit into the UK. And if you can move us on, I think we've got some more information about GVMS. So here's quite a bit of detail. So if you're the haulier, this is what you'll be interested in. You will need to register for GVMS, and I think we've got a link to that, but you will need to have from the trader a unique reference number that proves the declaration has either been pre-lodged or is not needed. So that can be an MRN, or it can be an EORI if the goods are being moved through the delayed declarations process or the simplified process. And you can also have a transit accompanying document, of course, if you're moving goods through transit. All of these references are linked together into one goods movement reference for each trailer that is being moved. So that can either be done through the haulier's own system into GVMS, or an online portal is available in the Government Gateway account. For each trailer movement, the GMR must be updated with the correct vehicle registration number. That's very important, or the trailer number, or the container reference number for unaccompanied movements. And it can be updated to cater for changes, but it must be correct when it is presented to the carrier. And if we move on again, I think we've got the link to the goods vehicle movement service, and it is quite easy. You do need to go in through the UK Government Gateway with a user ID and password, but you will find that all of the details for that on gov.uk. Before you start, you will need a GB EORI, and we spoke about that. It's very easy to get one of those. If you could move us on again, Eileen. So these are just some diagrams that show you how the GVMS imports will work. So just to recap, they will generate a goods movement reference number for each vehicle, and that'll be populated with the unique reference details for all the customs declarations for both import, safety and security, and if relevant, transit. That will be validated through the Office of Transit function, and then it will be risk assessed, and any notifications will be sent before the goods arrive. And I think we've got one the other way on. So if you move us on again, please, Eilidh. This is for exports. So it's the same process, but just the other way on. And obviously for exports, the slight difference is the export will contain safety and security information. There could be a CTC transit movement. And for ro-ro movements, as we said, you need permission to progress before proceeding to the port of departure. And if you could move the slides on again. I think that's us done with GVMS for now, but not with transit. So just to recap on transit, obviously the Common Transit Convention is a requirement that has sort of conventions in its own right. The UK joined the CTC from the 1st of January, so goods are now moving under transit from GB to EU and in reverse. There are 3 distinct customs functions: departure, transit and destination. Just to say that the UK has been trying to make authorised consignor, consignee processes as simple as possible. We will now turn around within 5 days any additional premises that an authorised consignor wants to add to their function. And if you move us on again, please, Eilidh. I think Margaret touched on some of these. So this is really around best practice. We did have some issues in the first days of using transit with unfamiliarity about what is required. And we would remind you that you should use present all of your local reference numbers at the Office of Departure. Remember, the LRN is not a TAD. You must have a TAD, that's a transit accompanying document, to progress. If you're an authorised consignor, you can produce those yourself. If you're not, they will need to be produced for you at the Office of Departure. And I think Margaret talked about, please remember to close your declaration. That is quite important, as your guarantee will be affected. And if you could move us on again, please. Inland border facilities, some of you will have heard of this or perhaps used them. Be aware that inland border facilities are not necessary if your trader is an authorised consignor. You don't need to attend an inland border facility. And there are some pages on gov.uk that are very helpful. They explain what functions are available at each inland border facility, because they all have slightly different functions available. They don't all have the standard, all have the same processes available. And it also allows you to book in to the inland border facility, which reduces the time that the haulier has to spend at that location. And you can also see how busy they are. And we'll put a link to that in the chat box. And if you could move us on again, please, Eilidh. And value-added tax. So this is separate from the stage customs controls. This is a change moving forward that was announced in budget previously. So from the 1st of January, postponed VAT accounting is available for imports for goods coming into GB from all countries, including the EU. If you're using deferred declarations and you're a VAT registered trader, then you must use postponed VAT accounting. If you're not using deferred declarations and you're a VAT registered trader, you have the option to use it or not. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to account for any import VAT in your VAT return, which allows you to have better cash flow access. And I'm sure we can pop some links in about that in the chat as well. And I think our last slide, but not least, is excise goods. So a reminder that from the 1st of January 2021, imports and exports for excise goods require completion of customs import and export declarations. And if a business is moving duty suspended excise goods to and from a tax warehouse to the place they enter or exit GB, they must now use a UK version of the excise movement and control system. So that is UK EMCS. It's no longer linked to the European EMCS. And as such, the EU EMCS ends at the EU border. And I think we do have some excise colleagues available for questions at the end. And I think that is the end of my slides, Margaret, unless I'm mistaken. No, I was right.
That's it.
There were a lot. There were a lot to get through.
There were a lot of detail in there, and the chat remains quiet. I mean, it could be because people had a late night last night in the Czech Republic. I don't know, but or just thinking about all of the information that you've shared with us. We will have a section on live Q&A later on after the presentations, but do please.
Margaret, let me interrupt you for a moment. I made a mistake right at the beginning. I was a bit caught by the event, so sorry for that. We prepared a presentation by our colleagues from the General Directorate of Customs, which I think in some ways should react to some of your questions, the race in paperwork, etc. I wonder if we should let them speak now or after the block of your presentations.
It probably makes sense if Kirsty's happy to wait a little bit longer. If we let them speak now, then we have customs all together, Martin. I think that makes sense. So we will stop presenting, and we're happy for your customs colleagues to present now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And again, my apologies. Pane Vesecký, jste tu s námi, můžete začít prezentaci?
Dobrý den, ano, jsme tu. Možná já bych předal slovo nejdřív kolegovi Lubošovi Doskočilovi, který by začal, a já bych potom následoval. Děkujeme.
Ladies and gentlemen, the floor is yours. So, General Directorate of Customs, which is part of Ministry of Finance of the Czech Republic. I'm sorry for grades, but I think it's obvious some majors and colonels here. So, the floor is yours, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Also from the customs side, from the Czech customs side. We would like to say some words very briefly about our experience from the first months of implementing of trade and cooperation agreement between the European Union and United Kingdom. So I think if I can speak generally, most of economic operator and also the customs welcomed the adoption of trade and cooperation agreement, but what was a big problem, maybe big problem, that the fact that there was very or maybe extremely short period for implementation, just a few days. So at the beginning, or mainly during the January, February, there were no experience with the implementing of trade and cooperation agreement, especially the part with or the part about rules of origin that I would like to speak about some issues or problems which we recognize. I would like to share just only 2 slides about main topics or maybe main problems. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so as you know, there is a part of trade and cooperation agreement which calls trade in goods, and in chapter 2 from the article 37 there is rules of origin, and it's also connected with some annexes, especially with the Annex 7, where is a statement of origin. So from the beginning, we recognize many problems with the implementing and mainly with the submitting of statement of origin, or we can also say generally preferential sentence, mainly with the format or with the content of the statement of the declaration. So there is only a short list of main problem or main issues. It was not so big problem, but the frequency of the questions and the calls to our colleagues was very high, and the question was still repeating about the same. One of the problem was the using of the abbreviation GB to the statement of declaration, because in the original in a trade and cooperation agreement there is allowed only only United Kingdom on the UK side, or EU or European Union or outside. So after several weeks, after several negotiations between EU and UK, it was agreed that also this abbreviation, it means GB, could be used for statement of declaration. The second one problem is placing the name of the exporter under the statement of declaration. At the end, there is a column, and there have to be written the name of the exporter. So it's necessary to fulfill this this condition. And from the beginning, from the January, February, and maybe the March, there was several problems with the submitting of statement on declaration. If some Czech or EU importer would claim for preferential treatments, many economic operators submit the statement on declaration without the name of the exporter, the British exporter. But after several weeks, probably the importers call to his supplier, and it was repeated, and now the situation is okay. Also, one of the biggest problems was using or introducing EU origin to the preferential sentence. It means lots of importers thought that it's also possible to claim for the preferential treatment for goods who is originating in EU. But its problem, it's no possible, because the trade and customs, trade and cooperation agreement said that only goods originating in the other party, the rules of origin is applied. It means that the main, or maybe one of the main purpose of the trade and cooperation agreement is that the fact that the customs duties on all goods originating in the other party shall be prohibited. So the important words are in the other party. So it's impossible if there is import British or UK goods, it means originating in UK, to claim for the preferential treatment. Also vice versa. So if there is export from EU to UK, only EU origin, it's possible for claim for preferential treatment in UK during the customs procedure. Maybe next problem was about requiring preferential treatment for imports from the UK for the goods originating in countries with which the EU has an agreement, for example, Switzerland, Japan, or Vietnam. So again, there was some experience which came from the days before Brexit. So also now it's impossible to claim for preferential treatment for the goods which is originating, for example, from Japan, and it was released for free circulation in UK, and after then it was sent or exported from UK to EU, and then maybe again this problem was solved, and now it's a minimum problems with this issue. And maybe the last of the problems from the beginning, the using different EORI number. For example, if there is an invoice there is one EORI number, but in a statement of declaration there is a different EORI. So this was also a big problem. Again, now it's a better situation. But we have some still pending problems. Again, it's not so big. One is the text of the statement of declaration. Sometimes it's submitted the statement of declaration where is the or which doesn't correspond to the right model in the agreement. Maybe it sounds a bit funny, but most of Czech customs officers are not experts in British English, but we will try to be better. But sometimes the text of the state declaration, it's a bit different. It means there is some different words, but with the same meanings, or there is no the same order of the words, like in a model in a trade and cooperation agreement. And to avoid the problems and prevent some delay, it's better to use really strict sentence or the text of the statement on declaration, which is written in the text of the trade and cooperation agreement in the Annex 7 of this agreement. And the last problem is also connected, which I said, with the solving problem with direct transports. Again, it's not directly connected with the agreement, trade agreement between UK and EU. It's maybe more problem of other trade agreements which has EU, for example, with Japan or Korea or some another countries. If somebody would like to claim for preferential treatment, it's necessary to fulfill the conditions for direct transport. In UK, it means if the goods, for example, come from Japan and is transported via the territory of UK, the goods has to be still under customs supervision, not released in free circulation, not in some private warehouses, but still under the customs supervision without any treatment, and after then has to be exported to European Union or to Czech Republic. So this is two main problems, but still we are open to discussion, me and my colleagues and also colleagues on a regional custom office are open to solve this problem. No problem to communicate about this. And as I said at the beginning, in the first weeks or first months of this year, there is no experience with the implementation of the trade and cooperation agreement. We didn't have any guidance, and also the economic operators didn't have any guidance which will maybe describe in detail the sentences and the measures which come from trade and cooperation agreement. But now you can see, or you can go to the website of the European Commission, to the website of DG Taxud, Director General for Customs and Taxation, where is a part which focuses to the Brexit or to the new relationship with the UK, and there are several guidance which focus to these problems, also to these problems which I spoke about some minutes before. So I would like to copy and pass this link to the chat for your later purposes. So that's all from my side, and I would like to speaking to my colleague Richard.
Okay, thank you, Lubos. I hope you can hear me well. Unfortunately, you cannot see me because my computer is not fitted with the camera, so sorry for that. I will try to give you some information about statistics, but first of all, at the beginning, I would like to mention also one problem we knew about that, and I also saw in the chat that there was a question about that, and that's the problem with the not finished the export procedure. Because a lot of Czech hauliers or transporters, they do not use the T1 procedure for exporting the goods to the UK, and there is a problem, especially on the French border, with the ending of the export procedure. And that causes a big problem with the VAT issue then, because if the export procedure is not finished, they cannot ask for the exemption from the VAT. So we are in the communication with the French colleagues, and we will have a meeting this Wednesday about that again, because there are some still pending problems with that the export procedure are not finished. From our side, what we can recommend is that the haulier or transporter must have some proof about the delivery of goods to the UK, usually with some custom stamp. It does not have to be custom stamp from the French colleagues. Also, we can approve export procedure as finished when we saw some or see some custom stamps from the UK. So that's our advice, and we will try to communicate with the French colleagues to avoid these problems on the French border. So, and now I will try to show you some statistics, if I will be able to present it. So I'm very sorry, unfortunately, I cannot see here the action to share the gallery with you. Okay, so then I will just try to talk about it, and I'm very sorry that I will not show you the graphs, but what can we say that after the Brexit, the numbers of the customs declaration in the Czech Republic and the Czech custom offices started to grow, especially on the big customs offices as a Prague or the central Czech region, or North Moravian region or South Moravian region. On these customs offices, the numbers grows about 30,000 for each month. And also on other customs offices, the numbers were growing. Not too much as on these big customs offices, but also there the numbers were growing. Doesn't matter that there was a COVID situation, which really doesn't help us at those times. So we can say that we have about more or less 1.3 customs declaration more than we had the years before, and it's connected with the Brexit issues. I will try to send the graphs to the ministry, and they can share it with you, so you can see the real numbers. But for example, as I look on the customs office for the central Bohemian region, we can see there that on the first month of this year, on the January, there was about 52,000 customs declaration, and the year before it was only 30,000. And the situation is pretty same for the customs office for the South Moravian region and the North Moravian region. So that's probably everything from my side. Thank you. And I will give the floor to the next speaker, please. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and maybe you can share your presentation through the chat like other colleagues. So
yes, I will.
We are done with the customs matters, and let us move on. Margaret, the floor is again yours.
Lubesh, Richard, thank you very much, and I hope you'll be able to stay with us to pick up some questions later on. Lovely. So handing back now to Ailey, who's going to run some slides for our colleague Kirsty Warren. And Kirsty works for the Department of the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and will be able to tell us lots about the details for sanitary and phytosanitary goods moving food and drink. Thank you, Kirsty.
Thank you, Margaret. Can I just check everyone can hear me okay?
Yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Kirsty Vaughan, and I work in the UK's Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and I'll be outlining the rules for the movement of SPS products today. Next slide, please. Can we move to the next slide?
I wonder if Ailey's having some trouble with the slides. We seem to be stuck in.
Yeah, I'm just opening the slides on my computer as well. Would you be able to talk to the first slide, Kirsty, just while I open those, and then we can carry on?
Yes, no problem. So I want to start with a quick reminder of the phased approach to controls the UK government is adopting. So these controls will be introduced in stages in order to allow traders more time to prepare. And different controls are being introduced at each stage for different commodities. So this slide is an overview of the requirements that are already in place and came into effect on 1st of January 2021 for products of animal origin subject to safeguard measures. Where we refer to POAO, we do mean products, animal products that are for human consumption, for example, meat, dairy, eggs, or honey. And these checks concern the import of products that may be affected by certain disease outbreaks that require additional measures. So in these cases, the GB importer must currently raise a pre-notification on IPAFs, and the consignment must be accompanied by a health certificate. So when the importer raises a notification for these products, the IPAF system will generate a unique notification number, or a UNN. The GB importer is responsible for providing the UNN to the exporter, and this is needed to successfully complete the health certificate. It's important to note that the exporter is responsible for obtaining health certificate. You will also need to provide an electronic copy of this certificate to the importer and ensure the original travels with the consignment. Safeguard action can be taken at very short notice, so you need to ensure you are familiar with this process in the event that restrictions are introduced for your commodity. Next slide, please. So live animals and germinal products are required to pre-notify using IPAFs at least 1 working day before the expected time of arrival at the port of entry, and for animals to be accompanied by a GB health certificate. The GB importer must supply the EU exporter, official veterinarian, with the unique notification number, the UNN, and that is produced when the importer pre-notifies the UK's Animal Plant Health Agency about the import via IPAFs. The exporter must add the UNN to the commercial document or health certificate, and physical checks on live animals are carried out at destination. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is a quick reminder of the requirements that are already in place and came into effect on the 1st of January for high priority plants and plant products. Phytosanitary certificates are required for imports of high priority plants and plant products. You must ensure that phytosanitary certificate travels with the consignment. Documentary, identity and physical checks of high priority plants and plant products are carried out at places of destination. The list of high priority plants and plant products can be found on gov.uk, and we can circulate the link to this web page in the slides after this webinar. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in March of this year, the UK announced these phasing dates for the introduction of additional checks and processes of goods moving from the EU to GB. A summary of these changes is presented on this slide. So from the 1st of October 2021, POAO and animal byproducts, the requirement that these require an export health certificate, documentary checks and pre-notifications using IPAFs. You must also provide an electronic copy of the export health certificate to the GB importer, which will be uploaded onto the notification in IPAFs. And for high-risk feed not of animal origin, the requirement is for pre-notification using IPAFs. From the 1st of January 2022, for POAO and animal byproducts, these goods are required to enter via a point of entry with an authorized BCP in order to undergo documentary, identity and physical checks. A BCP is a border control post, for those of you who don't know. For high-risk feed not of animal origin, these goods are required to enter via an established point of entry with an authorized BCP in order to undergo documentary, identity and physical checks. High priority plants and plant products, the identification and physical checks will move to BCPs for these. And for regulated plants and plant products, pre-notification is required, and also phytosanitary certificates and documentary checks are introduced. And then finally, from the 1st of March 2022, live animal BCPs will be operational at this point. And for regulated plants and plant products, identity and physical checks will be conducted at BCPs. Next slide, please. So I'll now go over the key SPS changes coming in for products of animal origin. From October 2021, products of animal origin for human consumption will require the GB importer to raise a pre-notification via IPAFs. So products of animal origin for human consumption exported from the EU will also need to be accompanied by a health certificate. The EU exporter is responsible for obtaining the relevant health certification. You must ensure that you provide an electronic copy to the importer and that the physical copy travels with the consignment. The importer needs this copy to upload to the IPAFs notification to allow remote documentary checks to take place. And you should ensure the copy is provided to the GP importer as soon as possible. Certain composite products are exempt from SPS controls at the border. So please be aware that the processes introduced on 1st of January 2021 for POAO, subject to safeguard measures, will continue to apply going forward. From January 2022, POAO will require pre-notification using IPAFs and must be accompanied by a GB health certificate unless an exempt composite product. POAO must arrive at an established point of entry with an appropriate border control post. Next slide, please. So if your product is a mixture of different products, it may be a composite product. Examples of composite products include lasagna, pork pies, pepperoni pizza, or cream liqueurs. Composite products are food containing both processed products of animal origin and products of plant origin, and where the processing of the primary product is an integral part of the production of the final product. So, for example, a ready meal lasagna or mayonnaise if it contains more than 50% egg. Also to note that the product of animal origin must be processed. Composite products must follow the stage requirements of POAO unless, again, they are exempt. So that means imports of these goods into Great Britain must be pre-notified and accompanied by a GB health certificate from October 2021, unless otherwise exempt. Some goods are exempt if they contain less than 50% processed animal product, no meat product, and they also meet the requirements set out in legislation. So if your goods do contain any meat product or more than 50% animal product, it must be accompanied by a health certificate, and it must also follow the phased approach set out for products of animal origin. Next slide, please. Thank you. So now we're turning to animal byproducts, APBs. So from October 2021, these are animal byproducts not for human consumption must be accompanied by an export health certificate, official declaration, or some other official documentation, depending on the commodity being imported. For animal byproducts, pre-notification using IPAFs before arrival at the border will be required, and the EU exporter must ensure that a copy of the export health certificate accompanies the consignment. They must also provide a copy of the export health certificate to the GB importer to upload a copy onto IPAFs. The requirements that are already in place for high-risk animal byproducts under safeguard measures will also continue. And from January 2022, animal byproducts must be accompanied by a GB health certificate or other official documentation, depending again on the APB commodity being imported. There's further guidance on commodity-specific requirements in the import information notes, and APB will need to arrive at an established point of entry with an appropriate border control post, and pre-notification will also be required. Next slide, please. And then from January 2022, importers will need to check if the combined, the CN, the combined nomenclature code for their product is listed in this regulation in order to determine whether their commodity must be imported via a point of entry with an appropriate BCP. And these goods will then be subject to documentary, ID, and physical checks on a risk basis. Next slide, please. So for live animals and germinal products, from October 2021, the requirements that are already in place for live animals and germinal products will continue. And then from January 2022, germinal products must continue to be accompanied by a GB health certificate and pre-notified in IPAFs before arrival at the border. And then there are new requirements for germinal products to enter via an established point of entry with an appropriate border control post. And then from March 2022, live animals must also enter via an established point of entry with an appropriate BCP for documentary identity and physical checks. And high-risk live animals imported from the EU to GB will continue to be checked at 100%. Next slide, please. Thank you. So for plants and plant products, from the 1st of January 2022, physical and identity checks of high priority plants and plant products will move from places of destination to border control posts. And the requirement for pre-notification and phytosanitary certificates will be extended to all regulated plants and plant products. So though not just those which are high priority, will be all plants and plant products, or regulated plants and plant products. And from March 2022, the UK's border operating model will be fully operationalised with identity and physical checks on all regulated plants and plant products being carried out at border control posts. Next slide, please. Thank you. Sorry. So IPAFs is the IT system that enables GB importers to notify the relevant authorities of the arrival of animals and animal products which are subject to SPS controls. So from October 2021, POAO for human consumption and some animal byproducts arriving from the EU will need to be pre-notified via IPAFs. Again, this is an action for the GB importer to take, and then they will need to upload the electronic copy of the health certificate that the exporter must obtain and provide to them. This system and process will allow for remote documentary checks to take place from October 2021 in order to preserve the flow of goods into GB and prevent any delays at the border. Pre-notification is required for imports from the EU. This is in line with the staged introduction of controls in 2021, which started with live animals and high-risk animal byproducts on 1st of January 2021. From 1st of October 2021, this will extend to cover movements of high-risk food and feed not of animal origin, animal byproducts, and products of animal origin. Next slide, please. Thank you. So for movements of live animals, importers need to submit import pre-notifications via the domestic notification system, which is IPAFS, at least 1 working day in advance of the goods arrival at the point of entry. For plants and plant products, importers need to submit import notifications at least 4 working hours prior to arrival for roll-on, roll-off and air movements, or at least 1 working day prior to arrival by all other modes of transport. And this is along with the phytosanitary certificate. And pre-authorization by DEFRA of animal byproducts prior to any imports taking place may also be required. Next slide, please. Thank you. I will now give you a bit of information on the SPS documentation that needs to travel with exports of products of animal origin to GB. So GB health certificates must already accompany any POAO under safeguard measures. And where safeguard measures apply, there is a safeguard version of the health certificate that must be used. And you will need to continue to use the safeguard versions of certificates where necessary. From October 2021, a health certificate will be required for products of animal origin for human consumption and for animal byproducts not for human consumption. So it is the exporter's responsibility to obtain the health certificate. The health certificate will be issued to the exporter by the competent authority in the exporting country. A certifying officer authorized by the competent authority must complete the official certificate, and the certifying officer is an official veterinarian or official inspector as defined by the relevant EU retained legislation. And they must have clearly completed all the designated fields on the certificate. Any official SPS documents that are required to accompany the GB health certificate, such as any additional attestations or lab results, will be specified on the relevant GB health certificate, and other documentation may be required depending on the commodity, such as a catch certificate for marine caught fish. Model health certificates are available on gov.uk, and you are able to use these to check the specific requirements for your commodity. You should note that these are only models, and the certificates will be issued by the relevant competent authority. There may be rare instances where a harmonised GB health certificate is not available for your POAO commodity. So if you cannot identify an appropriate health certificate, you should speak with your importer and then also check gov.uk for a general licence. Next slide, please. So I just want to end with an overview of key actions that the exporter needs to take from October 2021 and from 1st of January 2022 for plants. The actions that you as an exporter need to take are to ensure that you obtain the relevant health certificate for your product, make sure you provide the GB-based importer with a copy of the completed health certificate as soon as it is available, and make sure the original certificate travels with the consignment. And then for plants from the 1st of January 2022, please ensure that a phytosanitary certificate travels with the consignment and that the GB-based importer submits a pre-notification. So many thanks for listening. I know that was a lot of information, and I hope you found the presentation useful. Thank you.
Kirsty, thank you very much. Yes, as you say, a lot of information, but I think you're staying with us to answer some questions, and you have some colleagues on them. I'm very delighted now to hand over to Christopher Smart from the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Christopher, I know you've had a power cut, but are you with us? Oh, you are. Great. Excellent.
Yeah, all good here. Thanks, Margaret. Yeah, I have had a power cut. I'm joining on mobile network, so apologies if it's a bit shaky. Do let me know, and I can always go off video if you can't hear me very well. Thanks so much to all the speakers who've come before me. Really great overviews of various very complex areas, and great to see it all explained so clearly for everyone. I'm going to be speaking, so my name is Christopher Smart, and I work in the goods regulation team in the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. And I'm going to talk through a few short slides on the UKCA mark, which is the new domestic regime for goods regulation. So can we show the next slide? I don't know if it's come up on other people's screens. So what I'm going to talk about now is very relevant if you currently or plan to place manufactured goods on the UK market. And if so, the following slides will apply to you. What I will do is I'll place some links in the guidance in the chat, because there's a limit to what I can cover in the time allowed. So do look at the guidance. I'll put a link in now following this session. Bear with me. Can everyone hear me okay? I seem to be having issues with my Teams.
Yes, we can hear you now.
We can hear you, but we have some noise in the background.
Yeah, no, I apologize. I think next door to me doing some building work, so I'll do my best. That's why I'm on headphones. But if it is too much, then do let me know. Okay, well, if I can't seem to post that in the chat, so I will continue onto the first slide. It hasn't come up for me on the screen. Are we able to move the slides forward at all?
We can see your first slide, UKCA marking.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Sorry for that. So the UKCA marking is replacing the CE marking for goods placed on the GB or Great British market. It's used for goods being placed on the market in Great Britain, which includes England, Wales and Scotland. And it covers most goods which previously required the CE marking, and will cover aerosol products which previously used the reverse epsilon marking. We would encourage any manufacturer looking to place their goods on the UK market, and the GB market particularly, to start using the UKCA mark now. It's important to note that the essential requirements and standards that can be used to demonstrate compliance to the UKCA marking are the same as the CE marking, and this will continue to be the case unless GB and EU rules diverge. If you use self-declaration of conformity for the CE marking, you can use the same process for the UKCA mark, and so you can get started already. If your product requires mandatory third-party conformity assessment, it will depend on who does that for you, and I'll come on to that in more detail shortly. It is perfectly legal to use both the CE and UKCA marks on the same product, providing the product meets the requirements of each marking separately. Now, as part of the new goods regime, third-party conformity assessment is changing. Some products require mandatory third-party conformity assessment, where legislation requires external testing by a conformity assessment body to check a product is compliant. In the UK, we now call notified bodies approved bodies from the 1st of January 2021, and that changed what they can do. They can test the UKCA mark for the GB market, but they cannot test the CE mark for the EU market. For Northern Ireland, they are still notified bodies where they follow EU rules, and I'll cover that shortly. So, in summary, you'll need to make sure that you have a separate certificate, one for the GB market and one for the EU market, and this includes so one from an approved body and one from a notified body, respectively. We encourage manufacturers to speak to their conformity assessment bodies as soon as possible if they haven't already, to understand what their options are to arrange conformity assessment for the UK and the EU markets where needed. There are several transitional measures in place to support businesses making this change, and we advise you to look on gov.uk at the guidance which we'll link shortly to be aware of these. You should also check the guidance on gov.uk to see if any roles in your supply chain, such as authorised representatives, importers or distributors, have changed, and if they now have new responsibilities from the 1st of January 2021. If we can move on to the next slide. Now, as Northern Ireland continues to align with EU rules, this means the CE marking continues to be the conformity marking for most new approach goods on the Northern Ireland market. You will continue to use the CE marking in Northern Ireland if you self-declare, or if you use an EU notified body to carry out mandatory conformity assessment. However, products which have had mandatory conformity assessment by a UK-based notified body cannot be placed on the market in the 27 EU member states. Instead, to be sold in Northern Ireland, they need a CE UKNI mark. So the UKNI marking is a new additional conformity marking for products placed on the market in Northern Ireland. You never apply the UKNI mark on its own. It will always accompany an EU conformity marking, such as the CE marking. It's important to emphasise that the UKNI is only for goods which have undergone mandatory third-party conformity assessment by a body based anywhere in the UK. If your good is placed in the market but is not under one of those rules, it will be the CE marking for Northern Ireland. Now, as Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, there is a separate regime for goods from Northern Ireland being placed on the market in the rest of the UK. So, qualifying Northern Ireland goods marked with the CE or CE plus UK&I can be placed on the GB market under the government's commitment to Northern Ireland's unfettered access to the rest of the UK. We've published guidance on gov.uk where you can check whether your goods qualify for unfettered access to the GB market. It's important to emphasise that unfettered access only applies to Northern Ireland. Irish businesses, for example, need to follow normal procedures for exporting goods to Great Britain and complying with Great British rules. So I'll come on to my final slide, which is a timeline that shows the transitional measures to help you get ready to use the UKCA marking. Now, as you can see, the UKCA mark is already part of UK law and you can use it already. But to recap the key dates that you need to know. The UKCA mark will become mandatory for most products from the 1st of January 2022. Applying the UKCA marking to the product itself will become mandatory for most products from the 1st of January 2023. Now, until that time, as a transitional measure, the UKCA mark can be applied via an adhesive label or on the accompanying documents. And for more information on this and other transitional measures, you can visit our gov.uk guidance. Now, the reason we say most products on this slide is there are specific rules in certain sectors which you should check for. For example, rules for medical devices recognise the CE mark for longer. You have until June 2023, and our guidance on gov.uk has a list of these exceptional sectors. It is only the case that you must already use the UKCA mark this year if your products require third-party conformity assessment and use a conformity assessment body based in the UK. Now, I'm going to finish there so we can move on to the rest of the speakers, but I'd like to just re-emphasise that everything we've discussed today is covered by our guidance on gov.uk, and we'd encourage you to review this as soon as possible if you place manufactured goods on the UK market. Thank you.
Christopher, thank you very much. That was a very quick run through the detail, but as we mentioned, I think in the chat, we will be sharing the slides with all participants today, and as you know, the event is being recorded. So do please feel free to go through that detail at your leisure, and I know that we can get in touch with Christopher if you've got any questions about it. Our friends from the Department of Transport and Border Force couldn't be with us today, but they did want me to flag to you the changes to identity cards for hauliers coming into Great Britain. So if we could move on to the next slide, please, Natasha, Ailey, thank you. So just really in summary, it's something to flag, particularly with hauliers and others coming into Great Britain, that from the 1st of October 2021, it will not be possible to enter the UK with just an EU or EEA or Swiss ID card. You will need to have a passport, unless, of course, the person coming in has got rights under the Citizens' Rights Agreements, for instance, they're from Ireland, or they have applied and achieved something in the EU settlement scheme. And if you or any of your people that you're aware of are planning to apply for that, they have up until the 30th of June, a couple of days' time, to apply under the EU settlement scheme in Great Britain, in the UK. So just to make that very clear, you will not be able to enter the UK after the 1st of October 2021 with an ID card. People and drivers, haulage drivers, will need passports. The detail is all there. Probably worth noting that you will be admitted as a visitor, so there is no separate visa requirement, but just to ram home the point, passports will be needed rather than ID cards, please. So on the next couple of slides, I think we are coming on to some case studies that we prepared with our colleagues across government. The first of these is exporting beer from Czech Republic to Great Britain after the 1st of January 2022. And we have another case study then that exports beer from the Czech Republic to GB using transit. If we come on to the next slide, you can see the detail of this movement. I do not propose to talk you through this. I think you would probably all want to study this in your own time. As I said, we'll be sharing the slides, but there are a couple of key things that we thought we could bring out, of course. For exporting goods, as you'll be familiar with, and I can see from the chat many of you are familiar with, the need to prepare those export declarations and clear the goods before you leave the EU. Of course, it's worth flagging that the EU EMCS system for excise goods is not linked to the UK EMCS system, so you will need to arrange separate entries for that. Of course, if you're interacting with the UK's GVMS service, you will need to have a UK EORI number. In this example here, we have an exporter from the EU, John. We have Mary, who would be the UK importer, and we have used Rob as the logistics operator and the intermediary. So Rob is doing all of the declarations in this example. Of course, your agreement may be different with different intermediaries and or logistics firms, but we just produced this example on the basis that somebody would be moving beer from the Czech Republic to Great Britain through the short straits. So they would be coming to France and coming out through Dover or through Coquelles through the Eurotunnel. We've tried to make that fairly general, but I can see from the chat that you're familiar with the procedures at the French border, and it's not our place to talk you through those, but they have a system, very like GVMS, that combines the declarations together to give you one movement reference number, and we will have the same as GVMS. I hope you find this useful, and it does give an example of how to move excise goods. As I said, we have taken some certain decisions along the way. You and your supply chain may take other decisions, but as I said, we hope you find it useful. And we have flagged all of the procedures that need to take place after the 1st of January in the UK, such as entering a entry summary declaration for coming into the UK and ensuring that the customs declaration is pre-lodged. On the next slide, we have an example of moving beer using transit. And a couple of things to flag here. We've noted the fact that the transit movement has started, of course, in the Czech Republic, and that it needs to be completed in GB. And as Claire flagged, don't forget to close that transit movement. But there is a sequence of events that must happen if you are moving excise goods. So the UK import declaration will need to have been pre-lodged before arrival in the UK. The relevant ARC references for moving excise goods and an entry on UK EMCS must be made, and then the transit declaration can be closed and moved in. But this case study sets out the key steps for that. We have colleagues from HMRC. As you know, we have Claire on the line, and she is joined by two of her colleagues in the excise team. So if you have particular questions about moving excise goods, please do ask them now. If not, we know where they are and we can forward your questions and get answers for you if they occur to you, or if you work your way through these case studies when we send the slides and you've got other questions. I hope you find them useful, and I apologise, they're not the clearest to look at, but we're trying to think about ways of developing them for you. On the next slide, please. Thank you. Here we've just again summarised the key dates for UK imports. Again, I don't propose to read through this, but I hope you'll find it useful. What happened in January 2021? What changes in October? That entry summary declarations required. The exit summary declarations are required, and a change to SPS goods, and then again the list of what changes on the 1st of January. Perhaps something to keep and refer to if you're not clear. The next slide, please. There's a lot of guidance and support published, both here across the EU and indeed in the Czech Republic. We in the UK published a border operating model last year. That is being updated, and we expect to publish an updated version of that very shortly. We hope it'll be July, and we'll share it out through the embassies and our colleagues there to make sure you have all sighted on it. But that will set out the detail at borders in GB. We are also publishing and updating the guidance for hauliers, the haulier handbook, which is again another detailed document that sets out step by step what hauliers need to do, and that too is being updated. Again, we hope that will be the updated version will be published again in July. There's some useful import and export guides for those of you who are just starting out and haven't moved goods yet. We have provided some links on these slides to further help from our colleagues in HMRC and for DEFRA. Please do send any questions to us. As Martin said, you've got the email address in the Czech Republic for questions, but if you want to send any direct to us, please do use these email addresses here. We have a technical and operational team in the Border and Protocol Delivery Group that handles issues between goods stuck at EU borders and so on, and we will be able to help with that in the months to come as things change in the UK as well. So please don't be shy if you've got any questions for us. The last slide I had, the next slide I have, I think brings us into a Q&A session. I have noted that the questions and answer, or the questions has been quiet on our chat, but I think there were a couple of points that I just wanted to pick up. But if you've got any further questions, we've got the experts on the line now, so please don't be shy and make use of them. But I think one of the points that we wanted to raise was, and I think Claire has covered a lot of these really, but we acknowledge, I think, that you're all dealing with these new changes. You're moving your goods from Czech Republic. You are looking at new systems in France to get the goods out, and our colleagues from the Czech Customs Service talked about the talks they're having with France to understand that and get that automatic clearance done before you leave the EU. But we recognise that if you're moving goods from Czech Republic, say, through the short straits into GB and on to Ireland, you are dealing with a lot of new systems. We're working hard with hauliers and others to make those systems as efficient as possible. I don't know if Claire and the team from HMRC would like to add anything more about what they're doing with GVMS to help the flow and help hauliers understand it.
Hello, Margaret. So just to let people know that we are live proving across the range of GB customs systems for the rest of the year. So that involves traders who are moving goods being tracked by HMRC with consent, of course, to make sure that those processes all join together correctly. So as we've said, at the moment, GVMS is only live for goods moving under transit on import to the UK. But it will be fully live for all imports and exports, including exports for transit as well, from the 1st of January 2022. So very pleased. We've had very good reaction and good feedback from people about that GVMS work, as well as the other customs systems being tested alongside it. So that will continue, Margaret.
Thank you, Claire. That's consolation. Thank you. I think you've also answered the point, Claire, in the chat about the Incoterms. I think you've pointed out that HMRC do not recommend any particular Incoterms, or there's no legislation that prevents people using particular Incoterms for getting goods into the UK, but just everybody should be clear about what they have signed up to and what that means and what systems they can have access to in the UK and how they need to register. Is there anything else you wanted to add on that?
That's right, Margaret. We can't advise on Incoterms. They are commercial terms. The main terms can be found, and I've posted a link to them, but it really is between suppliers and importers and vice versa. They need to make sure that they're really clear on who is responsible for the declarations. And if you are an EU trader or an EU business, be aware that if you are going to be responsible for the GB declarations, that's either at import or export, you will need a GB established agent. So that's something to start thinking about before you get into those conversations about Incoterms.
Lovely. Thank you, Claire. And just to put your colleagues a little bit on the spot, I think we have Claire or Mike Gilmore from the excise team. Is there anything, Wendy, sorry, is there anything you wanted to add about moving excise goods into the UK? Anything that you've seen that you want to flag to this audience, particularly for the movement of Czech beer?
There isn't anything in particular, Margaret, but hopefully those case studies, cover everything in detail. And if there are any specific questions, then happy to take those.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you. A quiet day on questions today. I think we've put a lot of detail in front of people this morning, and I imagine they're taking the time to digest it. And Richard Liebesch, is there anything else you wanted to add or stress from the chat this morning? Anything else you wanted to remind the audience about? Okay. Grand. Well, I think the statistics have, despite initial issues, we're going to send those out along with our slides to everybody. This has been very useful session. As I said, we'll share the slides, and I hope you'll find it helpful as you start to, or as you continue to send your goods through to GB. I talked about the guidance that we've published. There's a lot of detail on gov.uk. We are doing a number of events across the EU between now and end of December and beyond, probably, just to help everybody through the key processes. So you'll probably get another opportunity to talk to my colleagues again in an event such as this, particularly in the autumn. But in the meantime, we are also producing a number of recording a number of webinars of case studies of moving particular goods from the EU into GB, such as products of animal origin, mechanical goods, excise goods, and so on, something along the lines of the case studies I've shown you today, and all of those will be published on gov.uk. Thank you very much. Thank you to those of you who have contributed to our Slido questions. We have one last question for you. And as always, we welcome your feedback more fully, or you can just click yes or no if you've got a better understanding of moving goods between the EU and GB after this event. And if you want to provide us more feedback or suggest other areas that we haven't covered that we should really have covered for you, please do let us know. And thank you for your feedback, Michael. That's really helpful. Martin, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yes, thank you very much, Margaret, and all colleagues from GB. Though I would prefer still UK, but I understand the difference. I still see some questions coming. So for those who will be not answered today, you will get the answer later. As a follow-up to the seminar, which I think was extremely useful. There is one question I would ask myself on behalf of one company. It's not very specific, so I do not expect a precise answer, but maybe, as you said, that there are a lot of information on your websites. You can check if an outsider will find answer to that question in your materials. It's a Czech company active in civil engineering, civil construction, which has a specific materials they treat. So they bring the materials on the site. So it's import from Czech Republic to GB. And the problem appeared when they wanted to repatriate unused material back to Czech Republic, because for your customs, it suddenly appeared as exports from the UK with all necessary paperwork and specificities linked to that. For the company, it was a big problem because it was very special material. So at that moment, the export was complicated. They somewhat managed to solve the problem, but for the benefit of others in the similar conditions, it would be nice to know that there is somewhere an answer to that question. What with own material repatriated, what's the difference between repatriation and exports or re-exports? So that was one remark, and as I said, I'm not asking the answer today, but for the future reference, definitely. So again, thank you very much to all those who contributed. It was really a lot of information, and especially thank you for your willingness to share your materials with us, because as you know, this meeting is registered, so you can come back to it and then ask your questions or find your answers. So yes, I'm glad that my WTO rules do not apply here because everybody was expert and we are within the limit of the time we were given. So it's just great. Last call for questions from the audience or remarks from the speakers. Otherwise, I will bring this event to conclusion. And it really doesn't seem to be the case. I'm just looking to Aleš, who is our steward today of the meeting. Margaret, thank you again. Thank you very much, Ambassador Archer and his team as well. And let's stay in touch. We have, in average, 60 participants to our meeting. So it shows that those questions are still quite pertinent, and there are still some cooperation from the governments, or the governmental officials to the business needed. So based on that, thank you very much. We are practically at the end of June, so I hope that you will enjoy July and August holiday period to get some rest and to come back in force with your exports, imports in the second half of the year. Thank you very much, and I think that this meeting is closed.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you to my colleagues.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.